Mom of quintuplets can't pay for groceries. Voice behind her says, "Your bill is already covered." Rachel Wilson and her husband Jack were overjoyed when they found out they were expecting quintuplets. They'd been trying for a child for years, and when they were blessed with 5 children at once, they couldn't control their joy. Jack Wilson was a truck driver who made a solid living, so when the babies were born, it was easy for Rachel to quit her job and care for their children. Things went on swiftly for 4 years. Rachel and Jack never expected anything to go wrong, but something did, and Rachel was at a loss. One day, Jack left for work early in the morning and never returned. It was their wedding anniversary, and Rachel had tried to stop him since she had a nagging feeling something wasn't quite right. But Jack had managed to talk her around. "Don't worry, honey, I'll be home on time, I promise." But Jack didn't keep his promise. Later that evening, Rachel got a call from the cops informing her that he'd passed away in a truck collision. The young widow sobbed incessantly, but nothing would change. Jack was gone, and she'd have to embrace the role of the man in the house. Because their kids were just 4 years old, she couldn't leave them alone at home. Hiring a nanny was out of the questions because savings were limited and there was no income. She couldn't even ask her neighbors for help because they were anything but friendly. Distraught by the situation, Rachel couldn't even get to grieve the loss of her husband properly as she threw herself into work to support her children. She began knitting scarves and hats and selling them for a living, but problems arose when summer arrived. Her talent could no longer help her and money was tight. One day she was at a grocery store buying items for her son's birthday, but the prices there made her brow furrow. When did the price of cocoa powder go up? $5 for a small one? Ugh, I haven't even bought half the items yet and the total's already $50. Jesus, I gotta put some stuff back. She returned the cocoa powder on the shelf and got a package of generic cocoa biscuits instead as a substitute for cake flavoring. She proceeded to the next aisle just as one of her sons, Max, started insisted on buying some candies. "Mommy, can you please buy me candies, please?" "Oh, honey," Rachel paused. "Candies are not good for you. Doctors say that candies make your teeth bad. They're also a little expensive, and Mommy needs to bake a cake for your birthday, so she'll have to buy the ingredients for them." But the 4-year-old boy wouldn't understand. He began loudly crying, which attracted some of the shoppers' attention. "I want candy, Mommy. No, I want it." "Yes, Mommy, we want candies too, please," cried the other 4 boys in unison. Rachel almost panicked in the store when everyone started staring at her, and she had to give in to her children in the end. However, when she approached the cashier to pay the bill, yet another trouble awaited her. "How hard is it to check the prices before buying something?" The cashier, Lindsay, grumbled. "You're $10 short, so I'll have to take some things out of here." She picked up the chocolate cookies, candy bars, and a few other items and began preparing the bill, but Rachel stopped her. "Oh, please don't remove those items. Let's do one thing. I'll remove the bread and…" Rachel began picking and choosing the items to remove. Meanwhile, Max walked away to the aisle where milk cartons were placed, but Rachel was too busy to notice it. He was walking around when he came across an older woman. "Hi there, young man. I'm Mrs. Simpson. What's your name? And what are you doing here alone?" she asked, gently smiling at him. "Hello, Miss Simpson. I'm Max and I'm 4 years old. How old are you?" "I'm just a little older than you, Max," the older woman blushed. "Let's say 70. Where's your mother?" "Mommy's fighting with someone. She says Mommy doesn't have enough money and we need to leave some things here." "Oh, is that so?" Mrs. Simpson inquired worriedly. "Can you take me to your mommy?" The boy nodded and dashed over to the checkout counter with Mrs. Simpson. Lindsay had grown impatient with Rachel and was lashing out at her. "Look, lady, if you can't afford stuff, don't come here in the first place. Now move, other customers are waiting their turn." She pushed Rachel's bag at the side and motioned for the next customer to approach her. "Next!" "No, please wait." Rachel had just started speaking when a voice cut her off. "There's no need to remove those items. Your bill's already covered." Mrs. Simpson approached Lindsay and handed her a credit card. "Ring in all the items, including the ones you removed. It's on me." "Oh no, please," Rachel intervened. "I'm afraid I can't take that from you. It's fine." "Don't worry, it's all right," the older woman insisted, and Rachel finally gave in. As they cleared their bills and walked out of the store, Rachel couldn't help thanking her. "Thank you so much for helping us. I'm sorry I can't pay you the money right now, but please visit us sometime. Here, this is my address," she said, handing her a note on which she scribbled her address. "I'd love to treat you to some tea and cookies. I make really good cookies." "Oh, that's really sweet of you, young lady," she replied. "I'll see you soon, Max. Bye-bye, boys," she added before departing. The boys waved back at her, and Rachel was perplexed when Mrs. Simpson mentioned Max's name in specific. "Do you know Mrs. Simpson, honey?" she asked Max gently. "Yes, Mommy, I told you were fighting, so she helped you." "Oh, she's such a sweetheart," Rachel thought as she walked back to her car. The next day, there was a knock on her door. "Oh, Mrs. Simpson, come in. You came right at the right time. I just baked some cookies," Rachel said, showing her the way inside. As the older woman took a seat, Rachel bought her some cookies and a cup of tea. "Oh, you didn't have to go to all that trouble," she replied, reaching for the teacup. "Do you live alone with your children?" "Actually, my husband died last year, so I've been raising my children on my own. Unfortunately, I'm not working right now, so the money's tight. I had a small business selling knitted sweaters and caps, but no one buys them in the summer, and I'm still looking for a job." "In that case, why don't you join me at my clothing store?" the older woman proposed. "I need an assistant and would love to have you. Don't worry, I can look after your children for you. My husband died many years ago and we never had kids, so I'm just an old lady counting down the days until God brings her home." "Oh my goodness, Mrs. Simpson, how will I ever repay your kindness? Thank you," Rachel cried. "You can return my favor, darling," Miss Simpson replied. "All you have to do is make me a nice cup of tea every evening. Deal?" "Of course, Mrs. Simpson," Rachel said as she wiped away her tears. She started working at Mrs. Simpson's store the next day, worked hard for months in a row, and got promoted to the role of supervisor. When she showed Mrs. Simpson her design samples one day, the older woman recommended she start a side business and encouraged her to share some of her works on social media. You won't believe it, but Rachel's designs went viral all over social media and a famous designer soon offered her a job. But Rachel turned down the offer because she didn't want to leave her job at Mrs. Simpson's store. She now lives with Mrs. Simpson, and her children call the older woman Grandma Simpson out of affection.
If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with someone who may find it interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.